Hey, what's going on? It's Joe Teel, and this is another 180 Creator Interview, the show where I sit down with creatives, business owners, or people just doing cool things in general. We deep dive into an interview, and I try to pull out as many gems as possible. Today's guest is Matt Fry. Super excited to have him on the show. He was my teacher at Liberty Alo. He then became the Director of Communications for Liberty Alo, and what he does now, he is the Director of Operations at Pleasant Grove School District. He's been great for the community. You've probably heard him on Texarkana Game Day calling football games, baseball games. Great guy. This is a great conversation for the YouTube channel, Joe Teel 180. Please like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out a lot. And now, the Matt Fry interview.
You have an opportunity and you have a venue and you have something where somebody can come in and, hey, let's just have a conversation a little bit, because every person you pass has their whole life and their whole story, and there's so many things going on at one time, and we see a little bit of it. So all of a sudden you go meet this person and you're like, well, that's something I never even knew existed, first of all. And then I sure didn't know that much about it. And it's just, I was having lunch today with my son, and a guy came in to talk to me, and I was explaining who he was and what he owned and this kind of stuff. And Mason's like, you know a lot of cool people. I'm like, yeah, it's just, well, one, I'm old, and two, it just comes with the job. You just cross paths with people, and it may be through work, it may be through, community service, it may be through church, anything like that. And so all of a sudden you just know these folks, and you just got a lot of people you can reach out to, and it's like, oh, yeah. I mean, I've called you about work stuff before, right?
Right, yeah.
All the way back. So here's a kid that was in my class, and then now you're out here, and we're both looking down in the bottom of a septic tank going, we got a problem.
We got a problem here. Yeah.
So anyway, that's cool.
Yeah. So what's your official title right now?
I'm the Director of Operations for Pleasant Grove Schools.
Yeah, that sounds, and this is Matt Fry, by the way. Like, I don't know when I'll start this, because I normally do an intro, but we were vibing.
Yeah, we were just hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so you said operator, what was the word?
Director of Operations.
Director of Operations. Well, that sounds like you do a lot.
I would say it's the non-school part of school, right? The part that you don't think. So any sort of maintenance facilities, the custodial services are under me, transportation, a lot of stuff that has to do with security. Of course, we have our own police department, but a lot of that will cross over into what I do. And so just a lot of that. And I mean, in the school business, you've got the school side, right? Everybody knows that part, and the teachers in the classroom and all that. And we have people that run that side, but then you've got everything else that makes that happen. And I, my approach with my guys, and my approach when I talk to staff and we meet them, is my job is to make you teaching in the classroom easier. That's it. That's the only reason we're there. At the end of the day, everybody's in the education business.
Right.
So if it's my HVAC guy making sure the air works, that's because it's a lot more comfortable to learn in a room where the air works.
For sure.
Or if it's the custodians making sure that things are clean, or the bus drivers getting kids there on time, all of that, if we can kind of keep that focus on school. And so I think that helps. I came out of the classroom. I was a teacher back. This is my 22nd year in education. And so I think that's maybe a different approach. Sometimes you get people that, I guess, know the work side of it more than the education side of it. And I think I brought a little bit of that side to it also. And so, yeah, it's a great job.
Right. Did you start at Liberty Alo?
I started at Liberty Alo. I was 23 years old.
Oh, wow. Did you go to school at Liberty Alo?
No, I graduated from Hooks.
Oh, okay.
So grew up out in Red Lick, went to middle school all the way through Red Lick. Went to high school in Hooks, graduated in 1999, way back there in the 1900s.
I was 5 years old.
Oh, at least you were born.
I was 5.
None of these kids here were born during that time. And graduated high school there, and then went off to school. And actually, Michael Lewis was the assistant superintendent at Liberty Alo at the time. I had graduated with my bachelor's degree, was trying to figure out kind of how I wanted to get involved with education. And Liberty Alo Middle School needed a Spanish teacher. And I could speak Spanish. I worked at JCPenney.
Where'd you learn the Spanish?
And, just in class. I had a really good teacher in high school.
Oh, cool.
And she required us to speak it all the time.
Oh, wow.
And then when I went to college, I took some more hours and that kind of stuff. Man, being able to speak Spanish and trying to teach Spanish, way different.
Way different.
Oh my goodness, you're trying to get kids in East Texas.
So that was your first job?
That was my first job.
Oh,
I taught Spanish at the middle school.
And what age was that?
6, 7, and 8.
So you taught all this,
and so everybody. And so that probably would have been your 7th grade year. I'm guessing somewhere around there, maybe.
Right.
And at the end of that year, Becky McClintock, who was the counselor there, came and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that knows anything about journalism? That we want to start that program." And I was like, "Well, my degree is in communications. That's what I went to college for." And I was like, "I'd much rather do that than Spanish." And so flipped over and started the newspaper program at the middle school. Did that for a couple of years, and then had an opportunity to move up to the high school. Took over.
How many years at the middle school?
LATV. 3 years at the middle school, and then 5 years at the high school as a teacher.
You said LETV? My bad.
LETV, yeah. LETV, so we did that. And so I had a crew, and we made videos and stuff, and filmed the games on Fridays. Did a lot of videos there. We had back then, Cable One was kind of the only cable that anybody had around here, and we had local access. And so every 4 hours, we got an hour of airtime on the education channel. And so we had pictures and videos and stuff that we would make that went on that, and taught some sound production and that kind of stuff through those LETV classes. And then moved up in 2012 to central office, and was communications director at Liberty ILO. And stayed out there doing that job for 9 years. So I taught for 8, did that for 9. And then the opportunity came to move into this at Pleasant Grove. And it's funny because normally, if you're going to move up in administration in a school business, you're going to have to move away. It's just kind of what it is. Those jobs don't come open very often. Matter of fact, I had an opportunity to go to Waxahachie, Texas, to take a communications job there. And
were you tempted?
This opened up. I was. It kind of came down to my wife. My parents live here. My wife's parents live here. We wouldn't want to leave Texarkana,
right?
But at the same time, if you're going to grow and just kind of, we needed somewhere that for my wife's a teacher, so needed something for her and the kids as well. And so we gave it a few days. Really thought about it, prayed about it quite a bit, and stayed here. She and the kids actually went over to Pleasant Grove a year before I did, and then I went over to do this. And so it's just it's a good opportunity to get to move up in what you do and kind of move up in
just right across
in the school business.
Too.
And you don't have to go far. Now, the flip side of that is you go across town, it's a huge rivalry thing, right? So
yeah, especially Ellie and PG.
Oh my goodness. So I went to Hooks in the 90s. All right, Hooks in Pleasant Grove, huge rivals. All right, every year, that's what it was. And so PG was always that school over there. I grew up in Red Lick, right? So people I graduated with, some went to PG, some went to Hooks, you're right there in the middle. And then come to Liberty ILO, and for 17 years.
Massive rivalry.
That's what it is. And so it was interesting for a while. You put this polo shirt on in the morning, you're looking, you're like, man, this is different, right?
You ever feel like a traitor?
No, and that's and the reason is and it's one of the things, and I talked about it from the beginning, and people asked me, Ellie and PG would play each other, and I said, well, who are you going to root for? And I was like, look, you got to be where your feet are.
Right, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, if you said Liberty ILO, there'd be a problem.
Yeah, you don't do that, right?
You're on the payroll.
But it's just, obviously, they're paying you each month, but more than that, I think be where your feet are.
Right, yeah.
And so, as an administrator in a school district, I think you really reflect, what that district is. And so I'll never forget when I knew I was moving and we hadn't told anybody, I called Kendrick King. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I know Kendrick King.
Love that kid.
Yeah.
Love that kid. And I said, hey, man, what size shirt you wear? And he told me, and I was like, hey, I'm going to bring you some shirts. You got to think, years. And you're an admin, so nice stuff and pullovers and Nike stuff and all that. And so I'd take it over to him, and that was on a Sunday afternoon. I'll never forget. And he's like, man, thank you. And so that Tuesday, the news came out, hey, I'm moving over here and all that. And he called me. He said, man, Mr. Fry was really confused. He said, I told my wife, Mr. Fry just brought me a bunch of stuff, and it's really nice. And I don't know. And I was like, yeah, you can't really wear that. So I've had to kind of slowly build a wardrobe. You go for years wearing school stuff because you go to school every day. And so that's how it works.
My buddy Chris Paul was in my class. Yep. He started came home from college and started working at Texas. start seeing him
Strange,
in orange.
right? Yeah.
And you're like, what are you doing, man? But then like now he's moving back to Liberialo, offensive line coach. So
yeah, I knew he was coming over. And that's, again, he's one of those kids that I've kind of followed through college and that stuff. And I mean, I think he's fantastic. But it's funny, you say, a lot of people said, well, I thought you grew up in LA. I thought you were from there and all that. And I do take that as a compliment, because I believe if you're going to be somewhere, be there.
Right.
And do it and work. And so I think, a lot of people did.
Yeah, you just repped it. You repped it so hard.
Well, and that's, I think it's where you're going to be. And so it's the same thing now, right? Yeah. I'm very proud of where we are in the district. I'm proud of what we're doing. We've got a ton going on. And that's, we built a new elementary school at LE when I was out there. And that's a big thing that helped me get this job at Pleasant Grove too, because they knew, hey, we're trying to go out for a bond. We want to get that passed. I'd had some experience with that. And then also, hey, we want to come and build some really nice facilities. And it's been really exciting getting to do that as well. And there are activities there. My kids are big in band. And my daughter's big in theater. My son's big in robotics. And those are some incredible programs that we have. Our robotics teams have gone to the World Championships.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Every year for the last 4 years. Band is really good. Theater's at the state level every year. And so it's a fantastic place for them. And so that's where we are, right? And so it's odd. And I'll say, and I would say most of my friends from LE, they get that, right? They understand, hey, you're here and it's family and the 4 people at home is what matters. And you still get sideways looks and you're still going to mess with each other once in a while. But I mean, it's been good.
A school rivalry is kind of goofy if you think about it, because a lot of times, like, especially you as like the kid, you don't decide where you go to school.
Right.
You just happen to be, your parents happen to live in the district, so you more than likely went to Liberialo. And then
it's where you live.
But now you have this beef with some other kid across town. He didn't have no choice of where he went to school.
Neither one of y'all really mad at each other. You're just wearing different clothes.
Yeah. And then like as an adult, like it makes zero sense for if somebody was like, oh, Matt Fry left us and went to, that don't make no sense. Like he had the opportunity. He's an adult that needs to work and wants to grow. But it's, I mean, there's no way.
But there is school pride, and it's a huge thing, and it's that. But you go back to it, at the end of the day, I mean, school is school.
Yeah.
And public schools here, and you've got 4 districts in the city, and then you got several around there. But I mean, at the end of the day, everybody does the same thing when it comes to school. And I think we've got, and I know that the Texas side a whole lot more than the Arkansas side just because we function so closely together, but we've got really good school districts and really good people that show up every day to invest in kids, and teachers that are just top notch and incredible professionals that come and give to kids every day. And it really makes me proud to be an educator and to see the opportunity that our kids in Texarkana have, because all of the school districts provide just some really neat things that kids get to be a part of. You doing what you're doing here and the music stuff and that's something that's available in all the schools now, and the video stuff, and so much more technology in the way that's pushed, and and all the schools are doing that. And it's just, I think if people, the last time they walked in schools when they graduated, they walked in now, it would blow their mind.
I'd like to go into a high school and just see like the vibe of it now. It'd be completely different than when I was in high school.
It would. They'd be saying things you don't understand. That's for sure. They would say, I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about when I go there. But beyond that, man, it's just, there's some really high level stuff that kids are getting to work with every day.
Yeah, we had ag
exciting.
Class. And
you got some of that. And
we that's all. We kind of had like the old school stuff. Like I had ag and wood shop and the car automotive class and stuff, but like now they work on computers and robots and all kind of, that's so crazy.
They do, but I'll tell you what you're talking about there, especially across the state of Texas, is career tech. They're starting to see that there needs to be an investment in those types of classes. And they have for so long, and this is kind of a little, inside school stuff or whatever, but for so long, the rankings of schools and kind of how they evaluated you was how many kids you sent to college. And so the push became push them to college, push them to college, push them to college. And there's a lot of people that can graduate and can make really good living and really support their family and provide services in the community that we can't live without, that you don't need a college degree for. And so as a school, our responsibility, and you're seeing it, and I and that's one thing I was really proud of at LE was how good our CTE was. And TISD is building a brand new CTE facility at Pleasant Grove this last year. We opened a new CTE wing. It's career and technical education. And why? That's because people are starting to see we're successful as educators if when you graduate, you can be whatever you want to be. You can reach your potential. And that may be leaving tomorrow and going to the workforce.
Right.
And making really good money and supporting your family. And if we've set you up to do that, then we're successful.
Then you're winning.
Whether or not you get a 4-year degree.
Yeah, so college really doesn't gauge how well you're teaching.
No, right. And for so long it was college or nothing. And now I think people are seeing that. Texarkana College, it's here. You've got degree paths, right? And there are some things that you need to go get a degree for. It's important. There are a lot of high-level things that you've got to have extra education for. But look at the big buildings that they're building over at TC. You've got an HVAC building that they came in. You've got an electrical building. The Leadwells have put in a lot of money to teach welding and those types of things. Why? Because we've got to have a workforce here. As we start to bring industry to Texarkana, what's the main thing they have? The one thing they can't bring with them is people.
People, yeah.
They can build any building they want. We got a bunch of concrete and metal. We can build that. You've got to have a workforce who is skilled to be able to do things. And that takes everybody from accountants that have degrees and chemists and engineers and those people down to a guy that knows how to weld things together.
Right.
And all of those people have to be here. And if all your eggs get pushed into one basket, you don't have that. And so TC has made some incredible investment in providing those opportunities for people. And you're seeing that in high schools as well. And I think it's really powerful, but that's because educators and the industry and the community together saying, okay, what do we need to be? How do we need to respond to what's coming up next? And we have a really good system in Texarkana, and we have a really good group of people who are on board with that.
When I was in school, because of kind of how I struggled in different areas,
right?
I always felt like, I don't know, I didn't know what I could offer like to society, you know what I'm saying? And school didn't really, I never really was hitting the points that they liked, you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So like, okay, Joe talks all day, he's really good at talking. That's bad. You get punished for that.
It can
That's
be a
how
problem,
it was when I was in school. And so the things that I was kind of good at were not the actual stuff. So it's like if they just gauged me off whether Joe went to college or not, if that was going to be a success or a failure deal, they would have missed that.
100%. Right. And that's a state thing. Right. And I don't want to get into a ton of those politics and stuff, but at the state level, when they start to compare schools and they start to do that for so long, it was just standardized test scores and kids going off to college and what they do. And
I'm terrible at the tests.
Right.
I can do it like if it wasn't a test, I could do it. And then like as soon as the test comes on, I'm just like I'm a notoriously bad test taker.
Yeah. And the thing is, you hear politicians say, well, the schools are just worrying about the test and that's all they're doing and they're failing our kids and they're just worrying about the test. And then the next week they'll say, these kids are terrible. Look how bad they did on the test.
Yes, right, yeah.
Well, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
At some point, it's either about that or it's not. And you've got to have accountability. You have to have some sort of baseline to show where that is. But it's this week, and you'll probably see stories and stuff coming out. The latest scores from the latest STAR test came out. And the big headline is, oh, well, math and science are lower and this stuff is lower. On that test, now think about this. This isn't how we function in any other type of society, right? Normally, this is what it is. This is how many pass. This is what it is. On the STAR test, everybody across the state of Texas takes the test.
Right.
They look at the score that everybody gets. And you're going to have a bell curve, right? That's just statistics. Over here, you got the kids that did really bad. There's a few of those. Mm-hmm. Over here, you got the kids that did incredibly well. There's a ton of those. Most kids are going to be about in the middle.
Right.
They will see where everybody was, and then they move that and they say, okay, this is where passing is. That's not a standard that's there from the beginning. They put it in
after
the scores come out. There are going to be this many. And so what happens is they'll say that, hey, kids are doing bad and this.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand
and the schools always respond. When I was in school, we had the Teams test, I think it was called or whatever. You probably had TAX back in the day.
TAX test.
Now it's STAR. Why is that? Because schools will say, okay, this is what kids need to know. This is how we're going to help them. This is what we're going to teach them. And that's going to show up on a test. When you teach kids what they need to know, that's going to show up on a test. Not teaching to the test. You're just teaching them what they need to know. And then what are they going to say? Well, more kids are passing. The test isn't hard enough. We got to make a new test. But those scores and all that stuff moves around. It's...
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding that what they're going for.
The ultimate goal of a lot of people that are... Go ahead.
Did they want the scores to be bad so they have something to...
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of where I was going in my mind, but I was like, that doesn't make sense, but that's the problem, huh? It doesn't make sense.
At the end of the day, so this is, again, Texas politics and some of that. Education in Texas is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's huge. And anytime there's money,
everything.
People say, how do I get some of that?
All right.
And so what did we see? And you saw this a ton in this last election. Mm-hmm. And let me just say before this goes anywhere, I'm speaking on behalf of Matt Fry. I'm not speaking on behalf of a school district or anything else. I'm as my own person. But in this last election, you saw a big fight, and it was about vouchers. And you got people
the last one.
Yeah, that's one that we just had a couple of weeks ago with Spencer and Van Deaver. And you'll hear people say school choice. Well, school choice that exists now. You can send your kid to any public school you want to go them to.
Okay, so school choice is...
Well, what school choice is, or what do they say it is? School choice, if you say just school choice, means you can choose where you send your kid.
Okay.
And that's what it is.
Even out of district?
Yes. Yeah, all these districts in Texarkana are open.
Open now. Okay,
so there's no transfers.
Do you pay?
Transfer rent? Nope.
Okay, but didn't it used to be though, didn't it?
You only pay, so you can't, we're weird in Texarkana because you have a state line.
Oh, okay.
Kid from Arkansas can't come to Texas.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if you, let's say you live in, so you live in Red Lake. Anybody that lives in Red Lake, that school ends at 8th grade.
Right, and so then you can go.
So when those kids go to high school, but this would be true even if they went in middle school. But when those kids go to high school, wherever that kid goes, the tax money that those parents pay that goes into Red Lake, it goes to wherever that district is. But if a kid leaves in middle school, okay, so my kids, we live in Pleasant Grove. If my kids went to TISD, that's where that tax money would go. It goes over there to TISD. Here's where the state stuff comes in, and when they say school choice, what they really mean is vouchers, and it's this. They want to take tax money that's going to public schools, and they want to give it to parents to send their kids to private schools. So church schools, private schools, religious schools, wherever that wants to go. And that would be good except for this. In a public school, we accept everybody.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you look like.
Right.
It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how much money your parents make. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter if both your parents are at home. It doesn't matter if you have a disability. It doesn't matter if you come from a home where nobody speaks English. When you show up in a public school, we're going to meet you where you are and we're going to educate that kid. That's what we do.
Yeah.
A private school doesn't have to do that, and that's okay. That's their prerogative to not have to do that. And there are people for whom that's the best choice for their kid, and they want to pay money, but they do that to create an environment where they want their kid to go, or they may do that to create an environment where their kids are taught, religiously what they want them to know.
Right.
And that's perfectly acceptable. We're strong believers. We take our kids to church every week. We believe that. We teach it at home. There are people that they want that in school as well. That's great. There are people that homeschool their kids, and that's the best option for them. We have people that we go to church with that are some of the most incredible people you ever meet, and they homeschool their kids. Great family. That's not what everybody can do, and that's why public schools are here. We're here because we take everybody. The deal with the voucher situation, and they call it school choice, is now they'll take money that would go to public schools, they give it to people to go to private schools, and then that accountability is not there. So when we talk about STAR testing and that stuff, not required.
All right.
When we talk about your finances having to be audited, you can go to any school district. You can find out what anybody makes. You can find out where every check goes. You have an elected school board that's elected by the community that makes those decisions.
And that doesn't have to be that doesn't have to be in a private school.
No, it doesn't have to be. That's where the biggest difference is. And so the fight, it ends up, they try to make it a fight between public school and private school, and that's not what it is. It's just tax money going to a private entity. And I asked somebody, when would you ever be okay giving millions of dollars to a private entity with no oversight?
Yeah, never.
I don't do it. That doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't.
And that's why they say school choice. That sounds a whole lot more palatable.
Yeah, that does sound more acceptable.
Yeah.
School choice.
But the statistics just don't line up to it. And you take any state that this has happened, and it's well over 85% of the people who qualify for the vouchers and get the vouchers are people who are already in private schools. And it does not require private schools to take anybody. You don't have to. So you can still choose. And at a private school, and again, this is their prerogative, and it's 100% okay. If they say, hey, listen, your child, I'm reading this, and man, they have some behavior issues, or they have some ADD, or my son Mason, hey, your son has dyslexia. We don't have the people here to deal with that. We're not going to accept you into the school.
So he would
they can do that.
Yeah, just end up back at public school.
Yeah. But
where would the money would go? Okay.
Well, no. I mean, if my kid went to public school, the money goes to public school.
Would go back to public.
But what they're saying is that voucher but they don't have to accept everybody.
Right.
So they'll say, oh, it's school choice because these kids are in these bad schools and we're going to give an opportunity to come here. Well, you don't have to provide transportation. So if their parents go to work in the morning and they can't drive them to school, so you don't want those kids. You want the ones whose parents can come there.
I'm seeing what you're saying now because, they're able to still be selective, so there isn't really an actual 100%. School choice.
100%.
Because there'll be criteria that they can't meet.
Yeah, the choice is they get to choose who's there. And in a lot of places, let's say it's a $12,000 voucher that you get. Okay, so here's $12,000 to go to this private school.
And that'll go to the parent?
Well, or to the parent pays the school.
Okay.
Okay, so the parent pays the school. And there are different ways that this is done, but this is kind of the one that they're pushing in Texas. A lot of times what you'll see happen, let's say it's a school and tuition at this school has been $12,000 a year. That's how much it costs. Now when vouchers come in, tuition at this school is $20,000 a year. Why? Because the parents who are going there can afford it.
Right. And then
they're putting their kids in there on purpose, but the voucher's not going to cover 100% of it. And so my thing from the beginning, again, if that's what we want to do, one, hold them to the same standard. If you're going to accept vouchers, then accept every kid that wants to come.
Right.
If you're going to accept vouchers, require all your teachers to be certified.
So you don't even have to have certified teachers at a private school?
You can hire who you want to.
Wow.
And again, and I'm not disparaging private schools because that's 100% their prerogative.
But you think that they just should be held at the same.
If you're going to get tax money,
right?
If you're going to get public money, you need to follow the same rules that public schools follow.
Public money, private system is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's in anything,
right?
Anything that's out there. If it's a public.
And that's what the vote, there was a vote about this?
Well, you had two guys that were running for representative, and one of them was pro vouchers and one of them was not.
Okay.
But you are going to see, that's going to be the biggest fight in the state of Texas this next year.
So that's new stuff that...
The governor is very pro voucher.
Okay.
And you start looking and you see the people that support that, and it's people that have huge investment funds, and they're going to invest in a lot of these private schools that
Right.
I mean, there are.
So this sounds like private schools are about to get hit with a whole bunch more money, right? I mean, isn't that?
Yes. And the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so this year, what happened, and you talk to people in public school, what they did is they did not pass a school funding bill in the state of Texas this year. They did not increase funding. They did not. So they made a proposal where they said, hey, we're going to give every teacher a $4,000 raise, but it's going to include this voucher on it. Well, there were 24. So the Republican side of Congress was for that, pretty much. There were 24 Republican congressmen, including ours here, who said, hey, that's not best for schools. That's not best for our area in Texas. We're not going to vote for that. And the governor came after all of them.
Oh, wow.
In these races. And probably, honestly, so Gary Van Dever won here. He's a former school superintendent. He's not going to be supporting vouchers and all that. But the governor probably does have enough votes that they won across the state
to probably do it
to
anyway,
get it pushed through somehow. But so it'll be a fight, and it's going to require
I had no idea this was
teachers. And
I had no idea this was happening.
And then people don't know, because it's really good marketing when you just say, well, do you believe in school choice? And because there was a thing on the ballot that said, do you believe that parents should have the choice to make whatever educational decision for their kid they want to?
They're like,
well, who's going to say no to that? Yeah. Who's going to say no to that?
But they don't break it down.
But it didn't go into what it is and all that. And it's just, the math doesn't work out. And it's not a system that's fair. And the thing is, what the answer they'll never, the commitment they'll never make is, well, if we accept this money, we're willing to accept the same criteria. It's not going to happen. And that's okay. Don't do that. Like, I mean, I have friends that teach and work for private Christian schools. That's great. What they do and the services that they offer and the parents who want their kids to go there, that's awesome. I'm glad for that. But don't give them public money without holding them to the same criteria, because in a public school, we have to take everybody. That's the difference.
Right.
And
that makes sense.
It's the great equalizer. And honestly, that's the way the world is. When you leave and go out into the world, you're going to be around everybody. So
yeah, that's the one thing about private. That's the big thing about private school. I did a half a year at Trinity.
Yeah.
As like a last ditch effort of my parents to course correct me.
I got you.
It didn't work. I did not fit said criteria, but then they ended up, my brother did.
Yeah.
And so I went right back to public school, like very fast.
Yeah.
And that's just where Joe belonged in public school.
I get it. And here's the deal. My wife graduated from Trinity. My wife graduated from private school. There is a valuable place for private school in this country. There's a valuable place for homeschool in this country. But if you'll follow the reasoning, if you follow the motives behind where the money's coming from, at the end of the day, you're going to see somebody that's getting rich off of it. In the public schools, nobody's getting rich. I can prove it because you can go look and see what everybody makes.
Yeah.
You got charter districts and private districts that have 200 kids in the district, and the superintendent's making $300,000.
Wow. Yeah.
You combine the salaries of 2 superintendents in public schools around here, and you're not going to hit $300,000, and certainly not for 200 kids.
Yeah, they'll have 4 times as many kids.
Well, it's or
more, huh?
3,000.
Okay, so wait,
3,000 and 11,000, and
how many kids is that? About the average kids? Well, how many kids are at Texas High? Like
TISD.
Like
I want to say it's around 11,000 kids.
11,000 high schoolers.
No. High school. Let me think.
Superintendent's over everybody, huh?
Superintendent's the school.
Okay. So 11,000. Yeah. You're saying a guy that's over 200 kids from.
And again, that's okay. They can pay them what they want to.
Yeah.
But
then
where's all that money coming from? And is it because you're not spending it on teachers? Is it because isn't
it sad how as an adult, I've just got into every time I get into stuff and you go down any type of rabbit hole, and it always seems to be like, just what do they say, follow the money. It just seems like that literally is almost where every rabbit hole just leads, where some old white dude's getting rich or something.
No, it is. And in this, so it's interesting if you see in this election that just happened, and I'm sure you got all those flyers in the mail that you would see with people's pictures.
I ain't gonna lie.
You got to get rid of them, right?
Yeah,
it drives you crazy.
That's trash.
But yeah, no, it is, and it was. But if you looked at where that came from, the biggest financier of that was a billionaire out of Pennsylvania. He gave $6 million to Governor Abbott's campaign to go fight against these representatives that
from Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
So he just has investments in Texas then, huh? And so you send money down there to...
And they have investment firms. They have investment funds that put money into private schools. And as those things make a profit, it's just a for-profit business. It's kind of like prisons or anything else.
Right. So do you think this is all like, because obviously I don't think capitalism is bad, right? But do you think this is like a byproduct of a country being,
I think it's just human nature.
Yeah.
I think that you look at, people don't like to be taxed.
For sure. That's why we left.
Yeah. Well, we left because it was taxation without representation.
Yeah. Which
here you got a school board that's elected.
Yeah.
You have representation. Now I don't know that at the state level and at the national level, do they have our best interests in mind? Probably not.
Probably not.
But at the end of the day, we at least get a vote.
Yeah. Do you think that the original, if they saw how our system ran, would they like cry and turn over in their graves?
I think yes and no. Because at the end of the day, we're still a constitutional republic, and you do have a voice,
right?
And you do have an opportunity in this country if you apply yourself and work at it. You do have an opportunity to advance, and right. I think that's something that this country offers that others don't. You'll see. We're talking about comparing schools and tests and all that. They'll start comparing the United States to China. Oh, look how much better their kids are doing. You know why? Because when they get to this age, if they can't learn, you're not in school anymore.
Yeah,
you don't get to be a part of this.
So if you do bad, they just put you in a factory or something.
I mean, they're not going to invest in those students. A teacher that I worked with, he's from India, and he said you go through grade school, which ends up somewhere around 6th grade or so, and you take a test. And when you take it, then they decide: are you going to go to an academic school, or are you going to go to a trade school?
Yeah.
And that's just the way that other countries do that,
yeah,
right?
Lots of other countries, right? Yeah,
yeah. And so that's what's beautiful about America.
Yeah, is
that in a public school system, on that first day of school, we're going to drive by in a big yellow bus. If you're standing outside, we're going to pick you up, and we're going to bring you to school, and we're going to teach you. And it doesn't matter who your parents are or anything. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that is one of the greatest resources we have in this country. Why? Because you don't have to get pigeonholed, and you don't have to get stuck into something just because of who your parents are, because they made a bad decision, or because they don't know what's best to do with you. You've got kids that, man, their parents may come over here and they're immigrants and they don't know how to speak English and all that, but they're going to get their kid to school because they know this is a way for my kid to have something that I didn't.
Right.
And that's what we do every day in public schools. And it's not perfect. We're not. And you can point all day, and people can point out the stuff that's negative and the stuff that's bad. And there's always going to be problems because you got a bunch of imperfect people just trying to do the best for kids.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we're going to teach your kids, and we're going to take whoever shows up at the door.
That's a good way to describe it, I think. Man, our system is good. It just got hangups in it, huh? It's just, but it's so much better than so many other systems.
It is, but you do have. I mean, it's kind of the nature of things as people get power, as that, and some of this is on us as the citizens,
right?
Because why do I know so much about the biggest deciding factor in this last election that we had here? Because it affects me every day. But at the end of the day,
if we poll,
there were 11,000 people that voted in this election.
Yeah, they don't know. There's no way that they have the in-depth deal that you just gave me right there.
And I had no idea. Right, and that's the thing. But you're going to send your kids to school. Right. It's going to affect you.
Right.
You're going to get a tax bill at your house, and wherever you live, the biggest number on that tax bill is going to be that school district. That's everybody. And so because of that, you don't want to pay taxes. That ain't fun.
No.
And then you're going to open it up and you're going to look and you're like, my goodness, Liberty Hollow ISD, I got to pay this much in taxes, or Pleasant Grove ISD. And we don't set the system. That's just what we are. But when Texas filed for independence, when Texas, in their Declaration of Independence, the primary thing they talked about was that they were going to establish their own school, their own system for kids. And the one thing that they're required to do in the state of Texas is to set a budget and to fund the schools. That's the one bill that they have to pass every time.
You can't get rid of school in Texas. Could you do that in other states?
No, I don't think you could get rid of it, but in Texas, it's just kind of in the forefront of it. Now, other states, you have income tax. And maybe some of that goes to school. And it's not just property tax. And so people do see that. The thing about it is, and Bowie Central Appraisal District probably won't like it, but at schools, the school board that's elected, they can set the tax rate, right? So they set, if your tax rate is $1.27 per 100 that your house is worth, that's what they can set. What they cannot control is the appraised value on your house. And so, again, games that they play down in Austin, a couple of sessions ago, they came out and all the legislators stood up and congratulated themselves and said, we passed a bill that said taxes have to be compressed and they can't go up by more than a certain amount and they have to go down. And so everybody's tax rate has gone down and it has squished. Every year, boom, boom, boom. So it went from, say, $1.41 per 100. Now it's all the way down to, $1.08. But in that same thing, as they make all these statements, and this is what we're doing, and man, we're fighting for y'all, the comptroller, who is the accountant for the state, sends a letter to all of us in the schools and says, hey, before y'all freak out, this is paraphrasing him a little bit. I don't think he used that word, but he said, before y'all freak out about the fact that we're about to compress your tax rates, we anticipate making this back up on the appraisal. So all that means is the county or the state is going to say, Joe, your tax rate is going from $1.40 to $1.08, but your house, instead of being worth $190,000, is worth $260,000. And you're like, what? What just happened? You're not saving any money.
Yeah, they just made it pretty.
But here's the deal. What you see is Liberty Hollow ISD. You're like, that dang school, my taxes are crazy.
Yeah, but it's not them. Yeah.
And again, that's the nature. That's how we're funded. You're not going to change that now. You may change it. There are people that are pushing for a straight sales tax. So they'll get rid of property taxes and it'll just be a sales tax. So everything that you buy will have that added to it. And they say, well, we're going to do that because if you're living in an apartment, you're not paying property tax, or if you're living in your grandma's basement, you're not paying property tax.
No.
And so everybody's not paying there so now we're going to get rid of property taxes and you're just going to pay, based on a sales tax or something like that, or a flat tax. And there's a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, the only way the government gets money is through taxes.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And
they go all out.
That's what funds, that's what funds schools, right? I'm not hiding from that. Ever since 2004,
right,
100% of my income has come from taxpayers, but that's something that
but
we do take seriously.
We can look at you and you can show us your history and how many kids you've helped and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's important to be like, my whole life I've been funded by the tax dollars. Here's what we did.
Here's where it came from.
Yeah. It's harder to see that from the bigwigs that draw it up.
And another thing that's important is when your appraisals do go up and there's more money that comes in. So when I was at Liberty Isle, it was one of the things that I remember. 30% of the taxes came from local people, which means the people that live in the district. 70% came from the state. Okay, so it came from other places. So all of a sudden in 1 year, our appraised value in the district went up by like $13 million. So boom, it increased. Okay, which means locally we're bringing in more tax money. So let's say it's $1 million more are coming from local taxes. And so you look at that and you go, man, okay, so now there's $1 million more coming in. Nope, they just reduce it on the other side. So coming back from the state, there's $1 million less. So here's the deal. I can account for every dollar that Liberty Isle spends. I can account for every dollar that Pleasant Grove spends. There's $1 million that they didn't send this year that they sent last year. Where's that at? And what are they using it for?
Oh, God.
And that's a simplified way to look at it. But here's the deal. Austin ISD, huge high rise. You see all that building that's going on there, or Dallas ISD, Midland, Odessa, that has a bunch of oil wells. They bring in millions and millions and millions because their taxes, not because their taxes, their property values are so high. And there's so much property there.
Right. And then you get the percentage off of the, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So they bring, but here's the deal. The state of Texas says you get $7,562 per student. So Austin ISD gets this. And so let's say that they're, just for round numbers, let's say that their annual budget is $1 billion, but they bring in $1.5 billion in taxes. So you're like, awesome. There's that. You got this many kids. The state, nope. They got to write a check for $500 million back to the state.
Convenient.
Midland, Odessa had to write a check for $200 million every year back to the state. And then that's the money that they're going to use to come in and supplement Liberty ILO, TISD, those that aren't paid for. So it's still coming from local taxpayers. It's not coming from it's called a Robin Hood principle.
Yeah, it's just like
So if you bring in more money in taxes than your school allotment, your school doesn't get more tax money.
No, you get cut off and they send it somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay.
If you bring in more than that, and if not,
I did not know this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again, now, if it was only up to local taxes here in Texarkana, because our property values aren't out of control like they are in Dallas and Austin.
Right. So would we not have enough money?
There wouldn't be enough money.
Right. Okay.
Right? I mean, and so it would have to come from somewhere. But when the state says, well, you're getting 30% from local funding and 70% from state funding, well, that 70% from state funding is actually from this dude in Austin that owns this house, and from this guy in Midland, and from this guy in Highland Park.
Because it's a collection of...
Because they've got to send that money back to the state.
Right, okay.
And so it still just comes from the local taxpayers. And it's frustrating. Same thing. I get my tax bill every year and I'm like, golly, I don't want to pay this.
No.
But I know at least some of that comes back to me. And so I get why people don't want to. And businesses. You got a huge business. It's worth multi-millions of dollars. Man, they're paying a big tax bill every year that goes to public schools. So I can see where the frustration comes from. But at the end of the day,
you do have to pay taxes. Yeah, you do have to pay taxes.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, you just hope, I guess the best way to think about taxes, at least from my very limited understanding, is that you hope somebody does something good with it. I guess it's gonna go. Well, because you cross your finger and then maybe try to vote better.
Yeah, and see where it goes. But at the same time, there's so many things we pay taxes for that we never complain about. We were sitting here, we heard sirens coming down.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, that's all.
If your house catches on fire, you're going to call 911.
Sure.
And you expect the firemen to show up. You know that for 43 years of my life, I've been alive. And so let's say since I was 17, I've been paying taxes that funds a fire department.
Right.
And I've never one time had a fire. But I've never one time been upset that I'm funding the fire department.
Right. True. Because you want the fire
because I
department.
thought, hey, this, and here's the deal. Even if I never need it, there was a house 2 doors down from me that caught on fire one time. They went and rescued that guy. Like, I'd have been like,
Yeah,
right,
you want.
I'm fine paying my taxes for that. So here's the thing. There are people that are going to pay taxes for kids to go to public school who are either never going to have kids or their kids have already graduated. But at the end of the day, they're going to have a better community. There's going to be more opportunity. There's going to be a workforce for people to have because you've got high quality schools that are teaching kids every day. And so
that makes sense. Even if you don't have kids, you still got to pay the school tax.
Right. And that's something that people hear all the time too. Well, why am I paying taxes if I don't have kids there? Well, it's
like community.
Make sure our taxes pay for all the parks that are around the city. You probably take your kids to the parks
all the time.
I don't take my kids to the parks anymore because they're older. So I could have, when my kids were 11, said, hey, we're not going to use the parks anymore. I don't want to pay this anymore. I don't care about
let me make a phone call. Cut off that park tax.
Yeah, I don't want to pay that. And I'm going to, instead of, paying taxes for the police department, I'm just going to, have a private security firm.
Yeah, I'm going to handle my own business.
Yeah. Now, the vouchers come in this way. If I say I don't want to pay for the public police department, I'm going to hire a private security firm, but I'm going to need some of Joe's taxes to pay for it. That's the vouchers.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Because I'm paying for a private force that doesn't protect
for me. You're paying it for me though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers to it. And I certainly didn't intend for this to be the whole conversation, but I think I learned a lot. It's important for people to know.
Here, because like I said, I had no idea. It's oh man, the more like, because I guess I was like 28 and I was saying like, I said that like that was last year, but I was thinking like my mindset even just last year was like I'm just a regular guy. I have no pull. I have no sway. People are already kind of suspicious of elections and all that stuff, and then I think you start to feel like it doesn't matter, and so like for so long I just wasn't tapped in at all. And then here recently, I've just started learning stuff, and I've been trying to like I'm almost 30, and I'm just now figuring out, okay, what do these people think, and then what did this group think, and then like for me being 30 coming into it, I'm like, well, it don't seem like neither of them work.
Yeah,
and so. And then like the politics of everything is so like school politics. I never would have dreamed it had been that complicated, and they're using fancy wording, and they're making a circle of how the money goes, and then it all goes back to some rich guy invested into it, and it's stressful. It's a little stressful.
Well, and this is what I would say about that, because that's how those people in power maintain power.
Like we just keep us so stressful that we just give up.
Because what you have to convince people of is, one, you have to convince them that everything is terrible. And two, you have to convince them that you voting for me is the only way to make things not terrible.
Right.
And if that guy across the street doesn't vote for me, it's because he hates you and he hates your family and he wants you to die. Those are what, because it's that control and that power that they have to keep the people stirred up. And so you have to constantly be in angst and all that. I mean, we got a presidential election coming up. I don't really know if there's a nickel's difference in the two of them. And here's the thing. Whoever the president of the United States isn't going to make that much of a material difference in what we do every day.
Right. And see, that was kind of the
people on CNN and Fox don't want you to believe that, but that's just the truth. That's just real life. Sorry about that.
No, you're all right. And so that's kind of where my thoughts have been until recently, where things did really change, like you do see. But I wonder how much of that was like the world just did change, And sometimes I wonder if that wasn't just like, because we got crazy inflation, right? Yep. And then as a common person, you try to, okay, like Was that the president, or was that the fact that the world shut down for 2 or 3 years, or that they just gave out checks to everybody? That couldn't have helped our money at all either.
Right.
And so, but so I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I've just been learning, and I like to listen to different sides.
Yep.
And they say different stuff, but from like take the border, for example. Both of the argument, like, I'm not going to say what I think, but I'll say, here's the side. Like, one says one needs the problem to fix it. The other one is saying, like, let them in because this is going to do this for us. And the other one, you know what I'm saying?
You're right.
But both of them have an agenda, and it's I don't know. I keep going back to the word in my mind right now. It's just overwhelming. I guess, and like you're saying, I'm playing into how they want me to, I guess they want us to feel overwhelmed.
Yes, and to be confused, and to put your trust in, okay, I've got to make sure this person is elected, and then that's going to make life better for me. Where it doesn't, and you're not going to see, and I don't. I mean, even with the school voucher thing and all that, if that ends up happening in Texas, we're going to adjust and we'll figure out how to do that in schools. But president, representative, and all that, they'll make you believe that it's just incredibly important. But I've been through, I mean, when I was born, Reagan was president, then we had Bush, then we had Clinton, then we had the other Bush, then you have Obama, then you have Trump. And so we're clicking along and going along.
Yeah, I just get worried about the big stuff, like the world-ending stuff sometimes, because some old dude could push a button because he's mad at some other old dude. That is stuff that
they could, but I also don't. I think there's so many people with money, people with influence that affect all of that stuff so much more than
the figureheads,
elected officials. A former teacher of mine, and I won't say his name, but he said, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. But so to me, the antidote for that is when everything is at this macro level and it's going to be bad and it's going to be, you turn back around and say, okay, what can I affect?
Right.
What can I do here? For me, I get that every day in my job. If I'm having a bad day and I'm trying to figure out and I'm upset about air conditioners and all this stuff is rough, I know that I can walk into a pre-K classroom and those kids are excited because there's a fat man with a beard in there and they think it's Christmas time. But no, they're just genuinely happy to see you.
Right.
And you're like, man, that's great. That's awesome. You want to do, walk around Texarkana, go out to a park one day when everything's crazy and walk around. And as you're walking around Spring Lake Park and you're just like, man, I paid taxes and all that. But you know what? Somebody came out and they mowed this thing and weed eated it.
Right.
And it looks nice. And there's a slide that my kids can go down and all. And all this stuff is here because somebody came to work and made that happen. And that dude running that weed eater,
it's rough stuff, especially now.
It's hot.
Yeah, it's hot.
And he wasn't going around and he didn't necessarily care anything about your kids when he was doing his job, but he affected them. And maybe you've had a long day and you've been out wrestling septic systems and all that kind of stuff. And that 20 minutes of out there with your wife and kids, because that dude showed up and did his job and he'll never see you happy about it.
Right.
But he showed up and did his job. There are people that if you don't show up and do your job, they're having a bad day.
Right. Oh, they can't flush.
And it's getting worse. Right?
They can't flush.
Yeah. And so, but how many millions of other people are even around Texarkana, hundreds of thousands of other people, they never think about you and your job anytime until they need you.
Right.
But you show up and you do your job every day. You affect the part that you can. And on some days, you make people happier than anybody else in the world could. Because you're doing what you're skilled to do. And everybody, there's something that you can do that at that day, at that time, may make somebody happy. There's even if it's just holding the door open for somebody.
Right.
You don't know what that person's going through that day, and all of a sudden you hold it up and you're like, man, that was really nice. That was nice of them to do that. Or if somebody comes to you and says something good about one of your kids, man, that makes you feel really good.
Yeah, I like that.
You're like, that's awesome. And that person's just going about their day. So what can you do in the middle of everything is huge and everything, and I can't affect that. Bring it back little.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And just do what you can do every day. There's so much good. And here in Texarkana, things you can get involved in that you can really affect, and you can really see some good stuff going on. And that's going to let you know the real. You're going to start, you start walking around. I'm on the board of the Salvation Army, and you go down there, and Salvation Army has the only family shelter in Texarkana. It's the only place that if you're experiencing homelessness or you have problems and you're with your family, that you can stay together. But it's not separated men and women and all that kind of stuff. And so every year at Christmas, there's probably 20 to 25 kids that wake up in the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't know that. But you can go down there and you sit across from these moms and dads. And at the end of the day, you realize how much more you have in common with people who are just in a different spot than you are. Go sit down. Just what you're doing with this. How many people come and sit down and you realize, man, there's a lot more that I have in common with people.
Yeah.
Because I'm not listening to what... How many people on the news want to tell me, well, those people are getting a handout because they don't handle their business right and all that kind of stuff. But they don't know that the guy was in a wreck and he was out for 6 weeks. And in that 6 weeks, rent got behind, and medical bills got behind, all this, and now all of a sudden...
Pain medication or something like... There's so many...
So now they're here because they're right there on that edge. How many people could afford to go a month or two without a check? Not many.
Yeah.
And so they end up down there in the Salvation Army.
There's not much separating.
There's not.
I think that sometimes when I see people on the road, sometimes it's like a hard feeling to do it. It's like, man, I'm like 2 or 3 mistakes away from that.
Right. And again, and that doesn't mean you need to go and give $20 to everybody standing on the side of the road. You can't. But at times you can affect just that one,
right?
That one little bit. That one. I do Santa Claus every year, and I did that. And at the Salvation Army, we were there, and there was a gentleman that came up to me. He's staying down in the shelter. He's by himself. And he came up, and we had presents for him. We'd give him presents to all the kids, and we had presents for the adults. And he comes up, and so here's a grown man in his 50s. He's got gray hair. He's coming up to me. Yes, I'm in a Santa Claus suit, but he knows. I think he knows. Right? He gets it. There's just another grown man. But for just that little bit and that little bit of separation in it being Santa Claus, he's like, hey, he said, can I give you a hug? I said, man, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I give this dude a hug, and he looks at me and he says, I don't think I've had a Christmas present in 12 years.
Wow.
And it was just a little, there were some ladies from the Salvation Army Auxiliary. It's what it's called. It's a group of, I call them sweet little old ladies because that's what a lot of them are. They raise money and they do stuff, and they'd put together some gift bags, and it had a blanket and it had some other stuff in it. They had put this together. There's a dude that works for a school in the daytime, dressed up as Santa Claus, and comes again. And for just a little bit, somebody saw him where he was. You can do that every day, wherever you are. And then politics and the world and the big problems and inflation and all that, it is what it is. We can't change that.
Right.
There's nothing you and I can do to fix inflation.
But we can.
But I can be kind. To vote. We can attempt to vote. But more than that, I can be kind to the waiter.
Right. Yeah. More important.
I can do that. I can invest in some kids. I can give a kid a high five when they do something cool on the slide at the park. Man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Keep on rolling. That just little stuff.
Yeah. So the macro gets overwhelming. You're saying
get it small.
Go micro. Yeah. Just affect what you can.
What can you affect?
Yeah.
Because that's You can't. I can't change anything they're going to do in Austin.
You're right.
I can educate people a little bit. I can inform them. But
yeah, like me, you've definitely.
Yeah, I've informed you. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I can every day. I can choose that I'm going to show up, and I'm going to have a focus in my job and what I do every day. In that, I'm going to make it easier for teachers to teach kids today. That's what I'm going to do. We worked all day today. We painted classrooms. My guys painted classrooms. I had some meetings. We're installing lockers. We're doing stuff. Why? Because we're making it easier for teachers to teach kids when they show up. Because that's a mission that I believe in, and it's something that I think is important. Whatever you're doing, when you're getting paid for it, do it so that it makes somebody's life better. Right. Yours is more tangible to see than a lot of people have the opportunity. I mean, and that's just real life. And I mean,
there's a lot of relief when I fix somebody's problem.
It is there. But at the same time, but think about that, and it's not even being funny, but the power in that, there are people that they don't have another option.
Right.
Well, at least not a good one.
Yeah, not a good one.
I mean, it's and so in that situation, that's all they've got. And I know that can sound like hyperbole a little bit, because how many people would say, "Oh, well, he's doing this over here." That goes back to the thing we talked about earlier when you talk about skills and abilities and what we're teaching in schools and how that kind of stuff goes.
You need the guy to come.
You didn't learn any of that you're doing at Liberty Island.
No.
I never taught a class on how to clean septic tanks.
Yeah.
Right. Now, hopefully, maybe, if you're going to have that in a business and that stuff, hopefully we've taught you some math and maybe some accounting principles and that kind of stuff that'll help you at least know how to do invoices and all that, right? But if you show up and do your job well, you solve a problem that people couldn't solve on their own.
Which is always good. That's the basis of business. Yeah,
everybody can do that.
Yeah, solving somebody's problem. And if you can solve somebody's problem, you'll always get paid.
Always. Even if they're just hungry.
Yeah.
If you're working fast food.
Yeah. What's really hitting me, and it's just you're talking about finding purpose in what you do. I do think it is easy to fall into the trap of, I gotta go to work and I can't not work because of all the things we said, inflation, taxes, all these things.
All that.
Yeah, but it's like you've got to get motivated. You got to get if you can look at your job in a way that makes you excited, that's how you keep doing it. I've ran out of passion before, and you can't do it.
And again, it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
No, definitely not.
There's times when the alarm goes off and I'm like, I don't want to do this today. No. I guarantee you there's times you don't want to be out there doing it.
No.
But that's the days when, I got a family relying on me.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be hungry at some point.
Yeah.
Or I like air conditioning.
That is also purpose.
Yeah.
We just don't get excited about that type of purpose.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be the excitement. Sometimes it's just, this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And that's a big generational thing that I think you're seeing some conflict in people, because people my parents' age and grandparents' age, you did it because that's your job. You shut up and do it. Kids your age and then especially younger, it's more about fulfillment and all that. So there are a lot of studies that talk about, back in the day, a dude went and got a job at a factory at 17. He stayed there till he retired at 62. And he hated it every day.
Every day he hated it.
And folks from your age and below, they'll have 15 different jobs in the course of a career. Because if they don't get fulfillment out of it, they don't want to do it. Now, there's got to be a balance there somewhere, right? Because they might be walking away from a job that's paying good money and putting their family in jeopardy and all that. But there is a balance somewhere. Do something that you're going to enjoy. Now, don't quit your job until you got a good alternative.
Yeah, but if that old school deal is like work at least 5 days,
Yep.
And then drink beer on the weekend kind of deal. Like here I see
exactly
my
right.
family on Saturday and Sunday.
Maybe.
Then back to the deal. There's guys, I do think, I don't know if it was the internet or what made us kids feel like that. I don't know.
I think those people had kids my age who were kind of the first ones to have TV and video game stuff, and not anything like what they do now. I'm terrible at this stuff that these kids
It's so crazy now.
But we had some entertainment stuff that they didn't have. I mean, that they go outside. And even my age, it was go outside, go ride your bicycle and all that. But we had some entertainment stuff and all that, and so they wanted that was best for their kids. And then people a little bit older than me and then about that age, then they had kids, and you want it to be great for them, and you want your kid to be involved in stuff. And man, there are folks that when they have kids, it's almost like a full-time job bouncing around between baseball and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, well, you got your kids in 17 different things. What do you expect them to do when they go to get a job?
Right.
But also, if you do have a job and you're unhappy with it, or you're unhappy with where you are, there are ways to change that. Either apply somewhere else and go get it, or go take some classes at nighttime and get whatever credential you need to go do something else.
It's true.
That's where some of the disconnect is, because sometimes they're like, well, I don't like doing this, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, if you don't like things
you're not going to be able to pay bills
that are challenging, and you leave every time it gets challenging, then you're just going to be cycling jobs.
Right. Yeah. And you're going to be frustrated, and then at that point you're going to start blaming, well, it's because they did this, it's because they did this, and then at some point you're going to be
it's less about fulfillment. You say it's about fulfillment, and it might be it just got tough.
Right. Because it's going to get tough some days.
Right.
There are days that going to work is not it.
For sure.
I mean, there are days that are some of my favorite days. Just incredible. So I can remember even from in the classroom to doing what I'm doing now and that stuff. But there's some days that it's just, I don't want to do this, but kind of like having a house. So here we go.
Yep, here we go. Let's keep this house.
And sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many things. And I think that the world is about to change. I think the technology's I think it's like we're on an exponential boom now.
Hurry.
Instead of like where I guess you would say it was pretty exponential in the 1900s. Yeah. But it's
crazy.
It's still gonna now, like maybe I'm thinking 2025 to 2030, AI stuff, I think is faster than we think, because AI moves so much faster than we thought.
Way faster.
Yeah, when we get like ChatGPT 5, which is coming down the pipeline, not quite yet, but we have 4, and 4 was so much better than 3, and 3 was so much better than 2. And that's just one company. And then there's like this big AI race between us and China. And then there's a race between Google and Elon and everybody, so it's, I don't know. I think kids need to be ready to adapt.
Right. And so when you talk about that's where schools have to be on the forefront. Because here's the truth of it. There is nothing we can teach as far as practical skills. Let's say a kid's in middle, or my son's going to be a freshman. And they're learning robotics and coding and all that kind of stuff. In 10 years, when he's 25, that's all going to be completely different.
Yeah, it'd be automated from an AI.
So in a school, yes, it's important. We're going to teach him how to code and how to do that. But more importantly, we're going to have to put him and his classmates and those kids in situations where they have to learn to problem solve and to figure stuff out. And then how do we adapt and change what this is? That's what we're doing in schools. Is if you graduate a kid and it's just rote knowledge, just this is what you learn and this is why. This is what you learn and this is why. That's the disconnect we have, because when I was growing up, it was
just learn this.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
The Declaration of Independence was in 1776, and George Washington was the first president. And it shut up. Don't ask why. That's why, because it was. Math was this way.
Yeah.
This is why. This is the rule. You learn the rule, and then you go learn the next rule, and you go learn the next rule. Education now is more of the why and all that stuff, and that's why there's a little bit of a challenge.
You can Google everything, and then if you can't Google it, you can AI it. Like you can ask, like if you buy ChatGPT 4 point whatever the newest one is, it's writing essays for you. It's almost can almost think for you, and so that just knowing information, you're not no better than the computer.
Right. So now you got to know, okay, we declared independence from England in 1776. What were we upset about the most? Where did that come from? And we learned, little stuff, taxation without representation. And and we had a Boston Tea Party. What does all that mean? That's that synthesis and the stuff that you see, because then you're teaching kids and teaching other people to start recognizing that around the world.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I'm 43. This thing's been going on for hundreds of years in the United States. It's been going on for thousands of years in China.
Right. Yeah. They're like 4,000
lives don't mean anything in the overall scope of what they're doing. So how do you maybe broaden that out a little bit more? And that's where the power of education comes in. And then technology, you really have to embrace the I don't know. I remember I got to tour Google's headquarters in Austin. And we're going through there, and they were showing us different stuff. A couple of floors they wouldn't even let us on because of the stuff that they were doing. But
what year was that?
Oh, goodness. It would have been probably 07-ish, a long time ago. Here's what I remember. I got on their Wi-Fi, and I just remember thinking, man, this is really fast. And at that time, the fastest that my phone would go was 100 megs. That was the fastest an iPhone would go. And when I did a speed test, it was 100 up and 100 down. Like, boom, just pegged out. And the guy that came and talked to us about Google and their infrastructure and fiber and all that kind of stuff, he said, the only limitation we have right now on speed is the actual hardware on the end, right? Like what we're running through. And so at that time, now this is way back then, Google had huge screens set up with cameras on them, and they would be able to communicate live video with other people. And so he showed us, like in their technician department, the guys that work on computers. There are only 2 dudes in this 7-story building in Austin that work on all those computers.
Two guys for all the
2 guys in that 7-story building. But here's the thing. In their office, they had a screen set up, and it had 4 camera views, and you could see the techs in Los Angeles and in London and in Tokyo. And so the only reason those guys were there is if somebody had to physically go put their hands on a computer. And so he said, if we're working on something and somebody's computer's doing something funny, he said, I can remote into it. I can access it that way. He said, then if I have a question, I hit and I talk to the guy in LA, and we just talk to each other. That we had never seen that. Now we know about Zoom and all that stuff because of the pandemic.
Yeah, but that was in 2007. Yeah, that's completely different.
And somebody asked the guy, they said, well, what are you going to use this for? What are we going to use this for? And he said, we don't know. That's the power in technology. You build something and you don't know what it's for. He said, in the 1990s, back when we had dial-up internet.
The one that used to screech at us?
Made a bunch of noise and all that kind of stuff.
I remember that.
But it was awesome. It was awesome. Why? Because you could send an email to somebody. You didn't have to wait for it to go through the mail. And if you waited 5 minutes, you could send a picture of your family to somebody else. And it was incredible because we had never seen anything like it before. And now we look back and we're like, oh, that was terrible. No, it wasn't. It was awesome.
Yeah, for the time.
But when we were on the computers at that time, we could never even think of something like YouTube because there wasn't technology for it. That was TV came through the antenna. That's the only place you got it. Now, hardly any TV comes through the antenna. It comes through the internet.
Yeah.
We couldn't even fathom that at that point. And so when super fast internet, and they were talking about taking gig internet to homes at that point, and they'd done it in Kansas City. It was the first place ever. They had fiber.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you said megs. Okay, so I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Okay, so super slow.
Yeah, 100 megs.
Yeah, that's not
gigs. Yeah, now I got 300 gigs at home. Yeah. But they were just now getting to gig internet there. So, I mean, there was no Netflix in that. Like people, you probably weren't alive when Netflix was DVDs that came in the mail.
No, I remember. I watched Lost. Mama would order Lost, and I'd watch
get a DVD.
You get like 4 episodes on the DVD. They send you another one back.
Yeah, now you can watch Lost in a weekend.
Yeah, you just got to go in.
But so when you look at ChatGPT and coding and technology and all that kind of stuff, it's scary to us because we don't know what it can do. But that's also why it's so powerful, because we don't know what it can do.
Right.
You have to have something there, and then you use it. Now it can write essays that can do that stuff, and so when you have a reactive situation, so in the school business, we get emails all the time. Hey, here's how you can check for cheats, and here's how you can do this. And there's ways. And maybe I won't say it on here so we can see, but there's ways, and there are things that you can. But guess what? Kids are going to figure it out. How many times did y'all get around network filters?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day
games? Yeah, even when we'd be in your computer class.
That's just... Why? Because kids are so much better at technology.
And they're going to have
old people are.
The technology to help them, too. Yeah, the technology, I don't know.
But it is. But that's the biggest thing is... Don't be scared of it. Yeah, but it's coming.
But do you ever wonder? I know this is a bad question to ask because I got to wrap it up in like 4 minutes. But this is a bad question to ask it for. Do you think it could get out of control? Like if they upload so much information into it, like because some of the companies are working towards like a AGI type situation, and
I think to me the biggest concern I have is people's inability to discern real from fake.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Because they're going to have hours and hours of your voice. They got hours and hours of mine. I call football games on game day.
Oh yeah, but they could load.
They could make hours if somebody wanted to take my life down. Or yours. Please, this is not a good idea. Please don't do this to me. Don't. I'm not an important enough person. That's something else. Remember we talk about the macro?
Yeah.
I don't make big enough problems for me to show up on anybody's radar. But if somebody wanted to, they could have a recording of you saying some absolutely vile things.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be so hard
to tell.
To prove.
Right.
Because you can, Photoshop, just what Photoshop has done in the last...
Yeah, this is Photoshop on steroids right now.
Now it's vocals and but the AI that's built into those things, those AI engines.
Crazy.
And they had that in 2012 when Photoshop first came out with some of that. It was cool. It was an AI engine. Now it's even more.
Right. I just think about my poor grandma. My grandma's 85. They would trick the hell out my grandma.
And you're exactly right.
There's no way my grandma could tell what was real and what was fake. Yeah. Like they could have like Donald Trump saying some crazy stuff and it looked like legit. They could even have Fox in the bottom or whatever. And my grandma would see that and have no idea.
There was and I have not watched it. I just listened this morning. I listen to the news every morning on podcast because I'm old. But I was listening to it and they had the press secretary for the president, and there was a video that they said came out yesterday of him at a fundraiser and just freezing up.
Oh, you're talking about the June...
Obama having to come get him and move him. This is last night or the night before or something.
Yeah, I saw at the Juneteenth parade.
That's what it was.
Biden froze up for like 3 minutes. I watched the video.
So the press secretary comes and says, that's 100% fake. It was a generated video. It's not real.
Huh.
Well, obviously, so it's politics.
Right, yeah.
So you got a side over here that says, oh, it's absolutely real. Y'all
because they want it to be real.
And over here says, no, it's absolutely fake.
They don't want it to be real.
We don't know.
This could be the most complicated election so far, huh? Because of AI influence.
I mean, my thing is, I don't know.
Right.
We don't, unless you were there, now... I would venture this, and I think this is going to go back to, now you go all the way back to journalism. You don't ever take anything off of one source. Mm-hmm. Well, that may end up being video. If something's at a public event, and I only see one video of it, I'm going to call you a liar because there are 700 people out there with cell phones.
So did video used to be a source, right? I got you on video.
If it's on video...
Yeah, they
You're
should be
stuck.
the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, you don't have to have two people corroborate the story.
Man, every time I think about this, it scares me even more and more, even though everybody keeps telling me don't get scared. But like, think about a court case.
All of it.
Yes, there's so
Well, so, but and again, but then, but if you're a defense attorney, if it's, let's say it's at a parade, okay, you're accused of doing something at the Juneteenth parade, like the president was. There was more than one person filming.
Right.
So now, if you're going to tell me that's fake, I can prove it easily because I'll find 4 other camera shots from different angles.
All the angles,
and I can show it. If you can only ever show me that one straight from right on, I may believe you.
Yeah, I wonder if we could Google that and see, like, if you could see more.
Like
angles.
I said, I haven't even.
Yeah, I haven't went down that rabbit hole. I just saw the video of my dumb self. Yeah, because if they did trick me there, they got me. Because I talked about it on my another episode of this. I was like, man, my boy froze up.
But we don't know. Yeah. Because today, like I said, today is when the press secretary said, "Oh, that was a fake video. It's 100% fake." And I haven't looked into it any more than that, other than listening. And I was like, golly, that's crazy. And I went back and thought, when I went to school, communications degree and in journalism, if you were a source, if you told me something happened, okay, and this goes into even law and that kind of stuff. If you're a witness to something, I'm going to have another witness to be able to prove that, or maybe another one to be able to prove that. But if it was video, it was video.
Yeah,
I don't have to have anybody else. Now, especially if it's something public, I'm going to need to see some more video before I just take it at face value.
But how many people, like, you're coming from a journalist background and you're thinking about, like, the true definition of sources and then taking all that type of information in. The common person is not thinking about, I need more sources before I believe that.
The common person is going to believe it or not believe it based on how they sway politically and where their news comes from.
Yeah.
If all my news comes from Fox News and right wing, I'm going to 100% believe this man's old and senile and he froze up and he's crazy. If I'm from CNN and the left side, I'm like, oh, there's just a conspiracy and they're trying to take care of this. Is just a nice old man president and he's doing a great job. And I'm going to believe that 100%. And here's the thing. If all of my news only comes from one of those places, I don't even know that other person exists on the other side.
Yeah,
I believe this is 100% true, and these people believe this is 100% true. And the fact of the matter is, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of that.
Probably somewhere in the middle, yeah.
But that's the thing. If you see it, depending on who your friends are and how stuff is shared and what you believe and what you want to believe about the president and whoever, if somebody posted a video of somebody that you were really close to, and it was a video and they were saying crazy stuff, you'd be like, man, that's crazy. They post a video of some dude you don't like a whole lot. You're like, man, he's trash. I knew it.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew all along.
That's gonna be the extent of the research that you do.
Yeah.
What do I feel about this dude?
Yeah, that's
how we do it.
That's very true. Golly, man, I have made it a point to not talk politics from like 20 years old.
Then I messed it up.
Well, no, not on the podcast, because I've been actually learning more stuff. But like up until I started like really talking to a bunch of people, and then like you sit in here with someone long enough, and like you talk to a bunch of different people, their opinions come out. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, I was like, well, that's what I was saying. Like I had to. So, okay, I didn't want my opinions, right? Let me go learn something.
Yeah.
And I've really have been trying to hit from both sides, and what I'm learning is I don't like neither of them.
I think if you agree 100% with one side or the other, then I think you're in a cult.
Yeah.
That's the only people that ever do that.
Because
the only people that believe 100% of something without researching it and saying, there's some nuance here, I think you're in a cult.
Yeah. I think that's super fair to say, even though that's not nice to say, but the fair
but it's
to
just
say.
That, I mean, because there are people that not only do you have to vilify and hate whoever's on the other side, but you completely ignore any deficiencies in the person that you're a person. And that's why, that's why our representatives, that's why everything has grown so apart. they can't get anything done.
They don't like each other
in Washington. Although the NSA bill is the only one that they did bipartisan pass to get through, which allowed them to continue, domestic wiretapping. But that's the only bill that they've agreed on in the
Was that in the TikTok
years.
deal?
So, no, that's just
that was something.
Well, and TikTok.
Yeah,
they went with TikTok, but no, they did. They
because someone told me they slipped in some more.
Well, that was already there. The FISA stuff was. Yeah. That was from back after 9/11. The Department of Homeland Security was established.
That was like the Patriot Act deal, right? Okay, yeah.
So they came together to get that rolling, so they can still listen to people that they want to listen to.
Yeah, they need.
And then they came in and they agreed to ban TikTok because it's not owned by a company that they can
control. Yeah,
control. You can just go
because
straight out.
They're not worried about the fact that there's a lot of backdoor stuff in TikTok or that, you know what I'm saying, spy, this and that.
They're worried about you being able to go directly to the public.
Yeah.
Because if YouTube doesn't like it, it'll be gone.
Right. Which I've been censored on YouTube and TikTok.
No, yeah, right. Well, see, now you got to do better. You got to act better.
Well, sometimes they just, we obviously we got to run it down, but these communities, sometimes the community guidelines are just, they're weak. Yeah. I don't know how to describe because everything I've got banned for is obviously like a little jokey joke.
Oh yeah, no.
They don't take jokes well.
You cannot.
It's like, and they're not even like malicious things. Neither like sometimes one video got took down. I was talking to an MMA fighter, and they were like, "Oh, that's too violent." I'm like, okay, I just scrolled down 2 or 3 ones before and watched the guy get shot. Okay, so why are you taking down my MMA and fights for a living? That's his job.
Yeah.
He just explained to me that he likes to fight people.
Yeah. And it's just, and some of that, there you go. That's some AI listening for stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because that's not a person going, no, that's algorithms and
they're going to find you and they're going to track it down. Why? And it all goes back to money we talked about because a guy in a community group that I'm in today, school communications people, he talked about they had used an image, which you're not supposed to do this. They had used an image from Google, had it on their website, and AI goes and scrolls it and says, "Hey, you've got this, and you didn't pay for a license for it."
Oh no!
And so Google's telling them
inside of a private.
On the school thing, but it came and found it on their website and said, "Hey, this is a license. This is an image that you're using, and you don't have a license for using it." Which, if I'm a digital creator, I think is great because I don't want you taking my stuff and using it for free.
Right.
And as a school, they shouldn't do the wrong stuff. But
I think in this world, like we said, we're just going to either have to adapt or get left behind.
It's going to be here. But I think the biggest challenge is going to be learning how to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah, 100%. And that's already something. We're hearing songs.
Did you, Randy Travis, did you see that recently?
Oh, he's going to use AI to make a new, one last album, huh?
He did. So they had a song and he kind of helped write the song. And there's a guy that can sing with his same kind of tone and phrasing and that stuff.
Right.
And that guy sang it. And then they took Randy Travis's voice, samples from before, and it sounds like him singing.
Yeah.
Because it fooled me for a minute. I was like, man, he got over a stroke. That's awesome. And then I looked into it more and it was all AI.
Yeah.
That's the good part.
Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. It'll be used for good stuff too. It's just like everything. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough to tell. They're going to use it for good. They're going to use it for bad. Maybe they can control it. Who knows? They're going to put a whole bunch of money into compute and then cut on the new version and see how much smarter it is than the last version and hope it isn't too smart, I think.
And what can we do? Control the micro.
Yeah, I like that. That's the main thing I learned today. You know, when the big stuff is too much, you just, let's work on me. Let's see what I can change. I definitely appreciate you.
Joe, it's been great. Hey,
oh, yeah.
I'm so proud of you. You do great stuff. I love seeing you with your wife and kids. As an educator, if you've ever been one of my kids, you're one of my kids.
Yeah.
And so I can even call you a kid when you're almost 30, or you're probably over 30. But
I'm 29.
29, close. See? But proud of you, proud of what you're doing. And this is the kind of stuff, seeing people do good,
Yeah.
that's what makes our job great. So I appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Y'all like, share, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. Hit the bell. It'll let you know when new videos drop. Another 180 creator interview. We thank y'all. And y'all stay blessed. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Hey, what's going on? It's Teel, and this is another 180 creator interview, the show where I sit down with creatives, business owners, or people just doing cool things in general. We deep dive into an interview, and I try to pull out as many gems as possible. Today's guest is Matt Fry. Super excited to have him on the show. He was my teacher at Liberty Alo. He then became the director of communications for Liberty Alo, and what he does now, he is the director of operations at Pleasant Grove School District. He's been great for the community. You've probably heard him on Texarkana Game Day, calling football games, baseball games. Great guy. This is a great conversation for the YouTube channel, Teel 180. Please like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out a lot. And now the Matt Fry interview.